Hosted by you/throwaway983154. This whole situation is really messing with my head. I, 20M, met my fiancée, Rachel, 21F, during the first week of college. We were each other's first everything, pretty much. I actually converted to Judaism because of her, hence the fake name. I'm not really that religious, but I really liked the way her family felt. My family was pretty dysfunctional, and I felt like it gave me a good framework for looking at and living life. We're not too serious about it, we don't keep kosher, we're living together, etc. Anyway, she's heart-achingly beautiful. She gets hit on any time and every time we go out. It used to be a problem, I would get jealous sometimes, but I eventually got over it. Now, it kind of gives me an ego boost. It feels good knowing that people find her attractive and that she finds me attractive. I haven't felt threatened by a guy in a while. So, we go to college in my hometown. My brother, Jim, 18M, recently graduated and asked to come live with me and my girlfriend. I asked my girlfriend if she was okay with it, and she said yes, so we let him move in. My brother is different from me, and even from my older brother. He didn't play any sports. My older brother and I were on the college basketball team until he graduated last year. My brother is also shorter and a little heavy. I'm 6 feet 5 inches and 178 pounds, while my brother is about 5 feet 9 inches and 230 pounds. He asked for help losing weight when he moved in. Honestly, my older brother and I suspect he might be the product of an affair because he's also a lot darker skinned than we are. We're all white, but he looks Italian, whereas we look Irish. He's also a little antisocial, listens to a lot of metal and screamo, and doesn't seem to have many friends. Everything was fine until he walked in on us. Jim moved in with us in late July. My fiancé and I have a lot of bedroom intimacy. Before he moved in, it was a couple of times a day. Whenever he leaves to go do something, we usually take that as an opportunity. We did something stupid and were in the living room when he got back. I had forgotten that I had given him his own key. I had finally gotten around to having one made. Anyway, he walked in and stared at us with the widest eyes I've ever seen. My girlfriend noticed him first and freaked out. We got dressed quickly and apologized to him. He said it was fine. Thinking back now, it wouldn't be that surprising if he had heard us a few times at night or noticed the music we play while we're together. I'm pretty sure the only reason anyone ever plays a Weezer album at night is when they're smashing. Anyway, things were fine. A week later, Jim asked me about sexting girls and if I had any advice for him. I've always been his go-to for relationship and intimacy questions. He told me a girl was offering to send pictures. I told him to never ask for them or pressure her, to avoid saying anything too crass when complimenting her, and to never share them. He then asked if I'd ever sexted, and I admitted I had a couple of times. Looking back, I think he was just manipulating me into answering that question for him. 2 days later, he asked to borrow condoms. I told him I didn't have any, and he said, "That's right, you weren't wearing one with Rachel." This freaked me out, and I asked him if he was looking at my Johnson, pointing out how weird that would be. He quickly apologized, saying he noticed when we jumped up after seeing him and that he didn't deliberately look for it. I believed him, went to the store to get him some condoms. He didn't want to go with me because it would make us look gay, gave them to him, and explained that the only reason I don't use them is because Rachel and I were both tested and agreed to deal with the consequences. I also told him if I ever found out he didn't use one, I'd beat the crap out of him. I know, I'm a hypocrite, but I hate condoms, and my girlfriend says she feels closer to me without them. This isn't the issue here. I also offered to take him to get the HPV vaccine. He agreed, and we went to take care of that. 5 days ago, I lost my phone, and I was freaking out, tearing the apartment apart looking for it. When I went into my brother's room, he jumped out of bed and hid something underneath the covers. Deciding to mess with him to make myself feel better about losing my phone, I reached under the blanket for whatever he was hiding, and there it was, my phone. I have to travel a lot for basketball, and while I was away, Rachel would send me intimate photos and videos. My brother had been emailing them to himself, along with a couple of less risque pictures of her. Furious, I started shoving him around, but I stopped myself before I did anything too serious. I made him go through his room immediately, and that's when I found one of Rachel's bras hidden under his bed. I then told him to open his laptop and wait in the living room while I checked it. I wanted to make sure I deleted any and all pictures of Rachel. I couldn't find any on the laptop, but I got into his email and deleted everything he had sent to himself. I then checked his internet history just to be safe, and what I found shocked the hell out of me. He had been posting on some dating/hookup forum, asking for advice on how to get with his brother's fiancée. A few days later, he claimed he had succeeded and was updating the forum regularly, almost like some kind of pseudo-blog. He started this when he first moved in and was basing some of it on real-life details. Here are a few examples. Lol, she looks so miserable when she's with him. I screwed her good when she got done with a loser. Lol, screwing her with condoms he bought me. God, her cannons look great out of these. This one included a picture of the bra he stole. The rest of the posts were paired with images taken from Google, close-ups of bedroom intimacy, based on things I had described earlier. That morning, he had promised some pics, referring to the ones he was stealing from my phone. Even worse, he had already posted pictures of her from Facebook, including one of her in a bikini, as well as a few from a website belonging to our friend who designs and sells dresses. This friend had asked Rachel and a couple of other girls we knew to model them. On his computer, I also found a letter addressed to Rachel, asking her to leave me and be with him. It was bizarre. In the letter, he insulted me constantly, claiming she would be happier with him, and called her the most beautiful girl in the world. I wiped his hard drive to make sure there was nothing else of hers, checked his phone, gave him $200 in case I deleted anything important with a wipe, got everything he would need for class, and threw him out. I told him to go back home, that I was telling Rachel, but I wouldn't involve our parents as long as he didn't make a big deal about me kicking him out. I also told him to have mom come pick up the rest of his things. I warned him that if he didn't delete everything he'd saved, I'd have no choice but to tell our parents. I checked later to confirm, and he had deleted it. Telling Rachel was incredibly difficult. She cried a lot and said she felt disgusted. We had an honest conversation and decided that the only way we'd feel comfortable having him back in our lives was if he stuck with therapy for a significant period of time. I sent him a text letting him know our terms. Rachel blocked him on her phone, social media, etc., and made her Facebook account private. She seemed really uncomfortable for a couple of days. The first day was the worst. She was too freaked out to be alone. I didn't realize this at first and didn't think much of it when she said she wanted to watch me shoot. We did that, and when I drove home to drop her off so I could go by the school to pick up some documents, she asked to come with me. After that, I was heading out to play some ball with the guys, and again, she asked to come along. That's when I realized what was going on and asked her why she didn't want to go home. She admitted she thought I hadn't taken Jim's key. I had told her that night, but she must have forgotten or not heard me, and didn't feel safe. I felt sick to my stomach that my kid brother had made her feel scared in her own home. She talked to her therapist about it the next day during her weekly appointment. She's getting back to normal now, being her sweet, fun self. We even had a pretty good date night yesterday. I, however, still feel lost about this whole thing. What do I do from here? Our parents don't know, but I told my older brother to ask for advice. I'm so mad about it, and irrationally, I feel jealous of him for seeing her in a way only I ever have. I feel like he stole that from both me and her. I also feel bad about what I perceive to be a complete loss of love for him. I don't feel like I care about him at all anymore. I'm considering going to a therapist to work through this, but I'm not sure. I went to one when I was younger and had trouble communicating, so I'm worried it could end up being an expensive waste of time. I also don't know how to tell my parents he's not welcome at our wedding, this winter, and that we won't be coming to family dinners anymore. I told him I wouldn't tell them what happened if he didn't make a scene about me kicking him out. I'd really appreciate any advice or perspective on this whole situation. Edit. I forgot to mention this, but I took screenshots of the blog to be safe. If he lies to my parents, I have evidence of everything. Op responding to comments telling him to tell his parents. My fiancée and I are going to meet with my parents tonight to discuss things. Thanks for the advice, I'll take all of it into consideration. I'm going to do it over the phone. My dad has taken a swing at me a few times. They've never really forgiven me for the whole converting thing. If my brother has lied to them, they might get defensive and start attacking me. Update 1 day later. My parents aren't going to come to our wedding. Rachel and I went to meet my parents at their house, and Jim was brought to my uncle's house while we were there. I told my parents that I needed to explain why Jim wasn't staying with us anymore. They told me they already knew and that Jim had told them everything. When they said everything, I was doubtful at first, but Jim really had confessed to all of it. I had printed out a draft of the email I was planning to send them, and they confirmed that Jim had admitted to everything. He had even asked for help. I was stunned. He's already started therapy and is going twice a week. Anyway, throughout this entire conversation, my parents were extremely kind to Rachel. They apologized for raising someone capable of doing such horrible things. I figured this was as good a time as any to make it clear that Jim couldn't come to our wedding. My mom instantly started freaking out about this. She said she wanted our whole family there and insisted we'd regret not having him there for the rest of our lives. I told her that Jim still made Rachel uncomfortable and unsafe to be around, and my mom asked Rachel if that was true. Rachel said yes. At that point, my parents said they wouldn't attend without him. They added that even though they'll always love and support me, they also want to support Jim. My parents' original plan, in conjunction with Jim's therapist, was for him to meet us once a month for an hour, if we were open to it. I told them that wasn't happening. Rachel wasn't okay with it, but I agreed to meet him alone. Rachel said that was fine, and I made sure when I got home. I sent Jim a text laying down some ground rules. 1. We would meet somewhere public. 2. If he said anything inappropriate, I would leave. 3. No lying. 4. Absolutely no contacting Rachel. I also told him that I'd only give him one more shot, that he had honestly lost my love and would have to work to regain it, that he would likely never have an actual conversation with Rachel again, that I would never forget what he did but could maybe move past it, and that there weren't any guarantees. He sent me a text saying, I understand, I'm so sorry. My parents wanted me to talk to him this Sunday, which also happens to be my birthday. I told them I wasn't prepared to do that, I'm still pretty angry, and that I wouldn't start seeing him monthly until next year, after the wedding. I don't know if I expect him to genuinely try to be a better person. I'm not counting on it. At least this way, if he screws up, my parents won't have an excuse to pick him over me. Also, if he does screw up before next year, I'll know he wasn't sincere. Once we got back home, I asked my fiancée if she was okay with this course of action. She said she liked it. I once again asked if she wanted to involve the authorities, but she said she didn't want to. She's been adamant about it this whole time. She was a little upset about my parents not being there, but I calmed her down, and we went to bed. I feel great right now, knowing what's going to happen. I guess I'm not that upset about my parents not coming. They did tell me that they still loved me, and our wedding is going to be pretty small and intimate. My older brother's coming back into the country for it, that's all I really cared about, and he said he'd be there no matter what. We're actually going to spend a year with him overseas after we graduate. We're not having a traditional honeymoon. I just want to say thanks to everyone who gave me advice. I really took everything into consideration.